Hello, I'm in a different room, and there's a very distracting cord here. Don't look at the cord. So that's guaranteed. Hypnotize you into not looking at the cord. I've got one amazing guest today. Like I had one amazing guest yesterday. I've got one amazing guest in various other things, but this one is Bryony Byrne. And hello, Bryony Byrne. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm obviously distracted like a kitten by this, and so I'm like, everyone else is going to be.
It makes me think you're like Woody in Toy Story, and if we pull it, you're going to say something specific.
Which might indeed happen. Yeah. I'm in a bedroom that's got very little internet. So if I move, as I was saying just before, just a little bit to the right, I can't. So I'm like stuck with this in the back of me. Oh my goodness me. Anyway, hello, Bryony.
Hello.
You are not in Edinburgh until Wednesday, I believe.
That's right. I'm not in Edinburgh yet. I'm coming up on Tuesday. I'm starting the show on Wednesday. So.
Oh, amazing. And I'm going to be up there tomorrow. And it turns out we're going to be in the same venue on Wednesday. Yay! And you were here with PBH Free Fringe last year, I believe, too.
Last year, yeah. Same room as well. Best room on the Fringe.
Yes. How did it go last year?
I love it. Last year was great. Yeah. It was my first time actually doing a solo show. So it was nerve-wracking, but it went really well. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I hope the same will be true this year.
I'm sure it will be. I was just saying just before we went on air that I did recognise your face because you had a picture of you dressed as Eric Cantona, which somehow ended up being transposed onto quite a few other people's pictures. There was a numbering system. It was like, that picture, it keeps turning up. And I was trying to describe it. And everyone's like, that's very odd. How did that
completely unintentional. But I'd love to imagine that I had like a tech team that was hacking into all of the digital software.
But then they would have come expecting you and gone, this is not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, to every show. Where's Eric Cantona?
Yeah, exactly. Did it go well though?
It was really fun. Do you know what? I realised sort of quite early on in the Fringe that I'd written a show that enabled me to have a breakdown in the middle of it. So all that fear, you have, oh my God, what if I break down on stage? What if I just everything, I give it all up on stage? But actually I'd written it into the show that was going to happen. So it was a great sort of safety net.
Exactly. It's good. Always good to have that. Yeah. And this year you've got A Clown Tries to Write a Show. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, A Clown Tries to Write a Play. So last year, the show I'd worked on for quite a while, actually. Ben Target directed it and we worked on it for, because obviously pandemic, we'd sort of worked on it over the year and a bit. So it was in quite good shape when it got to Fringe. But this year I thought, why not just go up with something super loose? Which at the time, when you just come off Fringe, you've had a good time and you're like, I'm going to set myself a challenge for next year. I'm going to do a wordless show and I'm going to do a show that I haven't really made. So now that we're obviously a couple of days ahead of actually doing the show, I feel like, why did I decide to do that? It's really stupid.
Yeah, like I'm sticking with what I know.
Yeah. God, no.
I am going to have really. Yeah. Well, and that might become part of the show, and it would be amazing as long as it wasn't actually devastating, which is another.
What people love to see is authentic breakdowns on stage. That's what they look for.
Exactly. Is that funny? I was just reading somebody's review that something about self-deprecating comedians, and somebody had reviewed them saying it's difficult to know whether they meant to make you laugh. It's like, it's a good guess that if you're laughing, that's even if it wasn't meant, that's usually good, unless it is supposed to be tragic.
Well, I think also if it's billed as comedy, presumably they are a comedian.
They're happy to get it. Exactly. Yeah. And in the spur of the moment, very much so. It's like you don't know what you're going to find.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's part of what I wanted to kind of leave it open this year. And I mean, to be honest, the parameters I gave myself for this show are a bit strict in that, firstly, trying to write a play on stage in front of people. I have a typewriter, basically a typewriter and a desk and a lamp. And it's turned out to be actually a bigger challenge than I realised to make sitting at a desk on a typewriter fun. But actually that's part of the journey, and it's going to be sort of getting people involved. And it's, that's sort of part of the joke, is that actually obviously it's not super interesting to watch somebody write, but what does it mean to write and what is it to create? And all those different sort of stages that you go through and things like that. But I've left it really open, so I hope that I'll find stuff with the audience.
It sounds great, and also it sounds very Strindbergian. with the whole doing the shtick on stage and getting the audience involved.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like,
yeah,
it's kind of meta in a way, but it's also, I mean, it's also sort of just a send up of like that kind of thing, right? Like of trying to write and doing something that's going to make us like real artists, you know, writing a play. That's like a very clear.
Yeah, very specific. And that's the thing as well. If you do improvisation and stuff, you are still writing it, but you're writing it as you're going along. And actually, if you're looking at something that's well prepared in advance, that's gone through so many different stages, but then sometimes it is just a first draft. You thought that's just serendipitous. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, certainly something I've discovered about myself is that it really works for me when I'm face to face with an audience member who's like engaging with me, and we have a connection there, that's something's happening, you know, and that's when I'm quite good at improvising. I'm quite good on my feet, and I'm quite good. Like, I like being with people, so it very much happens for me in the moment sometimes with that stuff. So I wanted to just give myself space to explore that with, like, I love having audiences there, you know. So hopefully, because it's really hard making on your own in a room. You just sat there in front of a mirror or a video camera, and you just don't know really.
Yeah, that's it. It's having the audience. That there is a sort of alchemy, a chemistry that happens with an audience sometimes that you can't predict always.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and it definitely feeds into what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's for sure the like live element of it, you know. Like the show that I talk most often about last year was when I had like a teenage boy in the audience, and my show was kind of about the I guess the sort of misogyny you experience growing up as a teenage girl, and the small sort of microaggressions that change the way that you behave and who you think you should become. And I played myself as a 11-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old on stage, as well as playing Eric Cantona. And somehow this teenage boy had come in the audience, because obviously it's not really supposed to be under 18s at Banshee Labyrinth, but he'd got in somehow, and he was with his family. It was sort of a last minute thing, I think. But he was very disruptive. He was very disruptive in a sort of low stakes way, where you can't really kick him out because he's just sort of yawning and rolling his eyes and just essentially doing all of the kind of stuff that I was exploring on stage. And it felt really, as a performer, I felt really vulnerable because I was playing a 10-year-old and I was suffering the same stuff that I was talking about. But because I'd written this Eric Cantona character in, Cantona has like huge power on stage, huge status, and he could kind of school this kid, which obviously made the kid want to like give me more back, and there was this kind of back and forth throughout the whole show. But because, as I previously mentioned, I'd written in this breakdown that happens at the end where me as a teenage girl turn into Eric Cantona and just go totally crazy. I just go around smashing everything up, and I'm really violent. And I just climbed over the audience and I just screamed in his face. and everybody was like, yes! Because everybody had been experiencing what I'd been experiencing it. You know, like we'd all been experiencing that same tension of like, what's this guy's like disruptive, and he's doing these things that feel like live imitating art in that moment. But then I obviously got to do this final cathartic kind of thing. And it was the hardest show to perform because of that experience. But equally, it's the one I talk about most because it was so real. And at the end, people were like, oh my God, that was amazing that he was in the audience. You got so much out of that. Like, and you got so many laughs out of him, actually. And I thought, yeah, that is actually true. Like, we have to be grateful for these like kind of difficult audience members, or like difficult situations that we find ourselves in, because that's what live performance is about, and that's what kind of makes it happen.
And you can find out so much more about yourself and the show when that happens sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. His sister, when they left, his sister was like, thank you.
Oh my gosh, family dynamics.
So yeah, who knows? But yeah, I mean, this show is a little bit this show's much more sort of gentle in many ways. So like, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm hoping, my main aim is always just to have fun performing it, and then I hope that the audience will also have fun with it. We'll see.
So have you got a bit of a clowning background?
So yeah, kind of. I did like a sort of short Gaulier course, and I did a course with I think they're called Small Nose Theatre. They're also clowns, and I've worked quite a lot with clowns because I also work as a tour manager and stage manager. So I've worked with clowns, sort of travelled about. I guess my background was really more improv, but I always felt like, I remembered I did a show when I was in my sort of early 20s at York Theatre Royal that was like an improvised sort of, it wasn't improvised, but there was an element of improvisation in it when I was allowed to go into the audience. And I've always found that when I'm allowed to engage with the audience in that way, that's where the spark lies for me. Like that's what, and so I've always felt drawn to clowning and drawn to like this idea of like, that just being sort of slightly vulnerable, but also like this dynamic between the audience and you on stage. And I did stand up for a while, but for me, stand up was a bit too, in the opposite way. I didn't like that dynamic between the audience and the stand up because it feels a bit confrontational to me. It's quite, when you come in, it's sort of a bit more like prove yourself. It's a bit more confrontational. Whereas I find the clown audience dynamic is a lot more organic and fun for me. So yeah, it's sort of, but no, I still feel a bit like an imposter, to be honest with it. My partner keeps joking because he's like, oh, because you haven't got the clown level 1, but I don't. So I do feel, you know.
That's interesting. I saw something with Elf Lions who did do a Gaulier course, but didn't do the clown part. And then apparently he gets very angry if anyone calls her a clown because he didn't do the clown part.
Yeah, well, that's it. There does seem to be this weird thing, like, and you hear it even just from other people when you're talking to people, or they'll be like, "Oh, they're calling themselves a clown, but they don't. I don't know. They didn't do that, or they didn't do this." And I don't know where people get that from, because I think you can be a clown. Like if you want to be a clown, presumably you can be. Like I recognise that there are obviously there's a history there, and there's of course like all of this stuff with it, and certain things that make you a clown or not, and certainly like. You can see clown shows and think, well, they're not really clown, or they don't fit into your idea of clown, or whatever. But I think, I don't know, it does no one, like it's of service to no one to kind of question how people are considering their work. I don't think
there's one way to be anything really.
Yeah,
it's very restrictive when people say. I mean, most of the clowns I know are party clowns, and I think they would be very much like sniffed upon by. So they're still clowns,
yeah, exactly. Oh, definitely. And the same with like circus clowns and like some, you know, real traditional clowning stuff that happens too. Like, I think it's a very broad arena actually. And I always kind of think this too. It's quite hard to define yourself as an artist, especially if you make things that cross lots of different kind of disciplines. Yeah. And the only reason to define yourself is so that audience members can find you ultimately, or the press can market you. I think for yourself, it's enough to just consider yourself an artist and make what feels right.
100%, yeah.
That sounds a bit wonky, but...
No, it doesn't. No, I had this discussion with a couple of my other guests about genre. What is genre? It's better to just explore what is in you rather than go, this is what I am and that's what I'm always going to be, and I have to make sure that I fit into the box. There's no point doing that ever.
Yeah, no, and I guess if you disappoint some people, like if some people think that this is the idea of what you build your show as, and then they come and they're disappointed by it, fine, because other people might be like inspired by it. They might think, oh, that really broke the boundaries of what I thought dance was, or what I thought clown was, or all of those things. I mean, I think Elf Lions, I haven't been up at Fringe yet, but Elf Lions is making a really sort of exciting show this year with Duffy, right, about all the different ideas and that to me, like, that occupies so many different spaces, and it could be. And again, I think it's really difficult in the UK at the moment because of the funding is so low. It does feel like you really have to know, like, who are you pitching to, and what buildings are going to let you perform there, or want you to perform there, and do you fit in with their particular artistic. So I'm sure people are thinking of those sorts of things too. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they could be, but I mean, the thing is, things like reviews. If you get a bad review, you could get a good review. If you get an audience that loved it, the person next to them might hate it or not be indifferent. It's just because one person thinks something is the most amazing thing ever and some person doesn't devalue either of those opinions, really. Yeah,
that's absolutely true. And I always think, whenever I'm sort of questioning that, I always think about books, because I'm a big reader, but there's books that I read years ago that I hated, and then I read again like recently, and they spoke to me in a different way. So I think that is true, isn't it? Of things like, you might be in a weird place when you watch something, or you might be in a place that it really speaks to you, and there's so much unknown quantity to it.
Exactly. You see things that you thought were the best thing ever, and they're awful when you rewatch them. Or it's the worst thing is if you see something and you want to get somebody else to see it with you, and they're not enjoying it, and that ruins it for you. You don't enjoy it anymore. It's not good to let other people dictate.
Oh no, it's heartbreaking. I had it with. Have you ever seen the film A Little Princess? It's one of Alfonso Cuarón's early films, and it's like, I mean, it's probably questionable now, but it's like, it's about a little girl whose father like goes off to war and she's left in an orphanage. Anyway, have you seen it?
There's a couple
one of
of
my favourite films
yeah.
as a kid. And at Christmas time, we had Christmas with friends, and I showed it to everybody, and they were all just so like about it. And I was like, oh. And I was genuinely sad about it. I was really sad. I felt really like crushing. But like you say, you can't let other people define what you like.
Although sometimes, yeah. I remember a while ago, I suddenly, for some reason, started watching the Professionals TV show and was reading all the fandom about it. And I think the fandom was influencing me more than the show, because I tried to get somebody to see the show with me, and they were like, "Oh, that's a bit reactionary. These people are terrible." And it's like, why have I spent all my money on these DVDs?
Oh no, yeah. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's unknown.
Unknown, exactly. But also the shock of the new. I know if I listen to a song, a lot of the time, the more I hate it when I listen to it, the more that's probably going to be my favourite song at some point.
Yeah, that's absolutely true for me as well. It's so weird, that, isn't it? I think you're right about shock of the new. I get it with clothes as well. If there's a piece of clothing that I try on and I feel scared by it, it sounds really sad, but scared by it, like scared of the idea of wearing it when I was younger, then that would probably be the piece that I should wear or like buy. So yeah, 100% feel you on that. So it's good to do things that scare us, I guess.
It is. Yeah, there is a theory that the thing that you hate the most is actually more you. It's like,
really? Is it the same sort of thing as like when the thing you most dislike in somebody else is the thing you actually most dislike in yourself?
That you're scared about, exactly.
Or the thing you're scared about.
Yeah. I read stuff about reincarnation, which probably is palpable nonsense, but it's like, whoever you think I'd be terrified to be, that person is probably who you were in a past life. Like, all right, okay. Not good.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I think it's probably worth examining, like, why are we scared of these things, or like, what is it about it that, and that is kind of what I'm trying to do with this show, to be honest. I've taken the thing that seems like the scariest thing. So for me, I guess it's like, I actually have like I did English literature at university, and I obviously I read a lot, and I write as well. So for me, like, writing and the written word is where I feel quite safe and comfortable. And like, I'm a performer, obviously, but it's different if I'm performing something that's written to if I'm performing something that, obviously, like you said, it is written, but it's not using my voice, or not using that tool that I know that I can use quite well. Like I can. This is a terrible example, because I'm about to say I can use words quite well. I can use words quite well. So I guess, like, and always also I've been quite athletic and physical, but I've not explored that part so much. And so this for me is going like, okay, well, what if I can't speak? What if I can't speak and I have to do all of it through my body and through my facial expressions and things like that? So that is quite scary for me, but also something I guess I've wanted to do for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Explore what you're most scared of. Like that whole cliche of feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like,
I mean, it's quite an intense way to run your life. But
yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't think so. No, it is easy to settle back in the stuff that you know is going to work. But then that, there's usually a lot of stuff that you know that you can do that you just, for some reason, somebody said, oh, I don't like that. And it's like, well, I'm never going to do that thing again.
Well, and there's also definitely that thing of being like, okay, well, this is the thing I'm good at or supposed to be good at. Therefore, if I fail at that, that's properly a failure. You know, like,
exactly.
When I remember even me and my friend that I was at sixth form, we talk about this all the time, about how, like, we were quite good academically, but we never tried, because if we tried and failed, that would be awful. We would not be as clever as we thought we were. Whereas if we didn't try and we did okay, we could be like, well, we'd have done really well if we tried.
Yeah.
You always
my God.
Convince yourself. So yeah, so many like weird psychological.
No, I can completely relate to that. I just about scraped everything, because it's like, if I do nothing and I'm still scraping by, what's the point? If I make even the tiniest bit of effort.
It's also like a weird thing. It is like kind of a British culture thing, I think, to like, don't try too hard. Or don't let people see that you're trying too hard, because that is not something we like.
No.
So
that's the thing. Yeah, like a lot of people say the Americans are brash, but they do say what they they know that they think, well, they might not be right, but they do say what they think they're good at a lot of the time, the American performers.
Yeah, they're not afraid to be cringy, I think. And I actually think that's quite a positive, and it's probably not popular with it, but I think it can be quite positive sometimes to just like, because if you're being, I don't know, I guess if you're being vulnerable or authentic, sometimes it could probably read as cringy. But what does that even words like that I find super unhelpful, because somebody might find that cringe, another person might really respond to it, or it's like very true to them.
Exactly. I mean, if nobody in the world likes what you're doing, then maybe start to rethink it.
Yeah.
But if you like it, but if even one person is engaged, then you can. I think everybody might suddenly get on board with it and realise the shock of the new. It was always what they wanted.
Yeah, well, definitely. Anything's possible. But that's what I love about Fringe as well. It's so like, you do see a lot, obviously people put a lot of money into marketing and press, and they kind of sort of try and stage themselves as somebody to watch or whatever. And often that does work quite well. But equally, out of nowhere, you have people that audiences just like their shows, or they find them. And sometimes just because audiences don't find your show as well doesn't mean it's not good. There's thousands of shows on at the Fringe. So it's it's both a difficult and brilliant place to kind of try and put something out. Like, for me, it's more like if I did this show, if I tried to work on this show in London, most of the people that would be coming to it would probably just be people I know. If I try and work on this show in Edinburgh, I could have people from anywhere with all sorts of different experiences and backgrounds walking through that door, and that's going to make a much better show, I think, ultimately. So
it could change your whole perception of what you were doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's also scary, to feel like, okay, you've got to be ready to throw maybe all of this out. Maybe none of it's good.
I mean, it's good, but it's good to not have a fixed idea right at the beginning. I know a couple of times I've gone, this is what it's going to be like, it will be fine. And then something's happened very early on, like in the first day, and the whole show is completely different 5 days.
Oh, really? Wow, but that's amazing. Like that ability to kind of pivot and change what it was that you were doing is, I just think of it incredible. Like, I admire that. I think it's...
I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying it was different.
It's not for you to say if it's good.
Well, that's true. You can't ever really.
No.
That's it. A lot of people do. That's it, though. Being a publicist really does work for some people, and they do fool you into thinking they're the best thing ever. There's so many people I've heard about by reputation, and it's mainly because they've told people. And then I see them and I go, oh, that's not what I was expecting at all. So maybe it does, but I still see them fated everywhere because they're so good at.
Oh, definitely, yeah, and that's a huge talent too, as well. But I think when you're trying to create something, or when you are an artist yourself, it can be so destructive. Like, I find Instagram so difficult for that, because it just ends up making you reflect on whether you're getting yourself out there enough, or like, what, and some of the time it comes down to lots of different things, but also money is a huge part of it. And I think we can't sort of forget that. And actually all we can do is concentrate on making the work, and then the rest of it will take care of itself. Yeah, exactly. You can just focus on making the work. But this is what I'm telling myself now, because I haven't promoted it.
The work is everything.
The work is everything. The play's the thing.
Yeah.
No, but I think genuinely for your mental health, that's like for me, I find that useful to just be like, okay, well, I'll just do this, which I actually have control over.
Yeah. Exactly. And not think about what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future, because you can't possibly know. Because it becomes a bit of a trap, really, that you look back and you think, I was on the verge of making it, and if I'd have just exploited the possibilities, it's like, you don't know. You could have been where you are is maybe where you were always meant to be, which is
that's actually quite a good way. And then also you look at people like Sam Campbell, and Sam Campbell didn't promote his show at all. Like, he had that one photo of himself with the Chortle editor, and he won the comedy award. So I just think, it's not, there's no formula to it. Like, people like to imagine there is, and that you can do something, but I just don't know that it's true. Like, obviously to some degree it is, in the sense that you're going to get a bigger venue, and maybe you are going to sell lots of tickets, but you
loads of money. But in Edinburgh, if you make loads of money, you probably already spent that money.
It's
so
all going
in
back
the
to
end,
exactly.
they're still in debt, just maybe not quite as much as you were.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why like Free Fringe is so brilliant, really, like just to be able to actually perform. and also for audiences, like it's because it's so difficult to navigate in Edinburgh now. Like I mean, the cost of stuff, like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like, I'm staying at a friend's house. Thankfully, I've got friends in Edinburgh, but it is getting harder and harder for people. And you just hear horror stories, don't you? So
exactly.
Really grateful.
There's I saw a theatre company from Peckham that was saying that they won a £10,000 prize that all went on accommodation, every single. So they're still having to do, GoFundMe's and stuff to pay.
Oh God, it's brutal, isn't it? I always sort of make this joke about the theatre and comedy industry. That's the same £10 that we're all passing around. We'll go and see each other's shows and stuff. But it does. There's a distinct lack of support at the moment, isn't there, financially? I guess we'll just see. Time will tell. Time will tell what's going to happen. But also, I wonder if the writer strikes and stuff in America are going to have any impact here, like on Edinburgh. Like I know a few people in America that would be coming that aren't coming.
But this is it, because none of the stuff in Edinburgh is going against the SAG-AFTRA rules at all, because it's very specifically the AMTPT, which is, produced, so they can do these shows. But I saw Sarah Silverman was confused about what wasn't scabbing.
Oh, really? No, I think they have live performance is still okay, but I guess it's also more that like obviously no one's commissioning anything, or no one's they can't afford it. They can't afford it. So
it's difficult. And I also saw because there's a thing with TikTok influencers and I don't know what they can or can't promote, because even if they're not SAG-AFTRA, they don't know what to. And somebody reached out because I thought, maybe I can do Doctor Who content because that's British, but apparently that is still not. It's still because it's partially American funded. So
you just got to check, I guess. So. I'm not working at that level, so it's not a problem for me. But
influencers. What does influencer even mean? It's like I've got 2 people watching me. I'm a big influencer now. It's like,
do you know what? Somebody on TikTok, I saw somebody refer to TikTok as, which I think is really apt, is like walking down a street full of buskers. I just think it's so, I love it. Like, honestly, I love it. I think it's really great. And some of the stuff you see on there, you're like, this is amazing. Like, why is this so compelling? It's really simple. People putting toy cars and tin cans on like moving conveyor belts and seeing which one wins the race. Like, but that stuff it's like street art. It's like street performance, but just in your phone.
I mean, there is pretty much everything in the world, but you get fed, depending on the algorithm, you get fed what you're expecting. So I got very strange stuff. I have got a few spoken word things today and gone, why does that not get served to me more? I'm quite interested in.
Oh, nice. We've got to let the algorithm know. You've got to like it.
Exactly. No, more of that stuff, please.
More of that. No, I'm looking forward to. There's quite a few people up this year, I think, aren't there? That like Tati McLeod. Is it McLeod or McLeod? I never know how to say her name.
McLeod, but I'm
McLeod. Yeah. I want to see her and like other people. I can't remember. Adrian Bliss, I think, is up, and yeah. I'm gonna. This year for me, it's as much about seeing, because last year I did this show at 11 a.m. and I was also checking my friend Tara's show at 11 p.m. and she was checking mine. So we were doing this quite horrendous 12-hour schedule. It was absolutely insane. I don't know. We thought nice idea to check. I know, checking each other's shows, great, like having a support there and all of that. But 12 hours apart, terrible idea. We just had no time to see anything because we were just completely exhausted, like non-stop exhausted. So this year I'm looking forward to watching other people's shows and just hanging out with people as well. Like I didn't get to do that last year.
I think you have to have 1 year where you're just doing all the hangout and networking, and then 1 year where you're concentrating on your show, because you can't do all of it. Is the thing?
No, you can't.
You want that experience. You have to come up more than once to get the whole experience.
Piecemeal experiences.
It took me about 6 years to climb off the seat. It's just
really?
And
oh my God.
I think 11 before I went to the beach. Like, there's a beach? What?
Wow. Well, do you know what? I was actually in Edinburgh with an American company once. I was their stage manager, and that was a really cool experience because they didn't have any of the like they didn't really know, like they didn't know anyone there, firstly, and they didn't really know what the Fringe experience kind of is supposed to be. And they're all Californians, so they have this quite like healthy approach to life sometimes, like outdoor sort of life. And so they all bought bikes. They bought bikes in Edinburgh for the month. Yeah. And they sold them at the end of the month. And we just used to cycle to the beach and go swimming. And like, it was such a wholesome Edinburgh. It was really amazing. Yeah. So yeah, I've had like a super wholesome Edinburgh.
Isn't there a tunnel all the way to the beach, almost all the way?
There's like a cycle path that goes all the way through. Yeah, it's amazing. And actually, I stay with my friends who live like a bit further out in the other direction. I stayed with them last year. And last year, because I was cycling home late after the 11 p.m. show, I kept seeing badgers. I kept seeing badgers around their house. It was just, I think it's kind of important to have that. Like, now Edinburgh's a beautiful place, isn't it? Like,
yeah. But I mean, you can have a completely different experience to somebody that's doing the show next to you. You can have a different experience every year. It's just ridiculous, really.
Yeah. I think one year I'd like to have the experience of having just like a really nice flat on my own.
Look with
that may be, that may be not in reach.
Who even knows? Yeah. So that's good. So your show doesn't start till Wednesday. You're still preparing for it?
Starts on the 16th. Yeah, it's at 1:30, Banshee Labyrinth Cinema Room. Wow. Still preparing for it. Just just trying to figure out a kind of loose structure for it, I think, so that I feel like I know what I'm one thing to the next, but leave enough space for there to be some like changes. And like, I mean, I'm nowhere near like Doc Brown's level, but I watched Doc Brown's Work in Progress last year and I found that really inspiring, because one of the things that he does is he kind of just waits. Like he's really not afraid to just wait for people to get on stage or wait for people to interact with him. And something I have a tendency of doing as a performer is really racing. Like, you can hear I talk quite fast. Like, that's my sort of tempo as a person is quite fast. So it takes a lot for me to slow down. But I think if I can, and if I can just hold my nerve, then maybe there's something to be learned from that. So
that is good. Yeah, pacing and timing. I know I struggle with that.
It's hard.
Always told when I was doing stand-up, just primarily that that was good, but you didn't let's catch up with the jokes. Like, is this because I didn't really have any faith in it? I just want to get to the end.
That's a huge part of it. For me too. I think it's really normal, that just being like, okay, just keep going, and then you'll stay entertained.
No, I don't care.
It's like, I think it is one of the hardest things to do, to learn to just trust that, like, actually audiences, they can sit for quite a while just watching you, like that is okay. And that's been, like, I've worked a bit with some dance companies in my stage management role lately, and that's been quite cool to watch that, because some of the stuff they do is really weird. And audiences really will just like wait for it, like watch and wait. And mostly they don't need you to race through it. But it's easy for me to say that. It's actually difficult for me to do it. But But we also sorry, go on.
No. I was told early on that the audience is actually rooting for you, that they want you to succeed. But maybe.
I think so. I think it's doing any stand-up at any point in your life really makes you feel like that's not true.
Exactly. As soon as you go on stage.
Actually, because the stand-up makes you feel like, no, they're here to heckle, or they're here to throw something at me. Not experience I've had, thankfully, but like, there definitely is I don't know what it is. And maybe not all stand-up has it, but I certainly felt there was too much of a barrier between me and the audience in that. Because without that, definitely I believe that they're there. Even in stand-up, they're there to root for you. In reality, it's just hard to feel like that's true. Not all of them. There's always someone.
There's always someone. Yes. So your show sounds really exciting. So it's a clown tries to write a play.
Clown tries to write a play. Yeah, we're going to write a play together. So come along, see what that looks like.
Brilliant.
You can help me.
Hey, excellent. So it's 1:30 every day, or you got days off?
No days off. So 16th all the way through to the end, I will be there without fail. It's a very nice room, very comfortable seats. So
I would recommend coming to see your show, staying to see the chat show that I've got there, and then seen all the shows, go in and out, have a lovely drink at the
Yeah.
bar, come and see my shows, come and see Bryony shows.
Yeah, you'll have a really comfortable time. You went from your venue, raining, it's dry.
Yeah, and the good thing about that venue is there's several rooms. So if you're like, well, I'll go and see a different show and then come back to see another one.
Yeah, and they program really great stuff. Like you can guarantee most of the stuff there is going to be excellent. Actually, Dan Lees has got a show on in that same room.
Oh,
I think at 10:30 or 10 p.m, something like that. So you could just stay in that same room.
I mean, you have to, and then give people money in the bucket, get a drink, be lovely to everyone at the bar, come back again.
Yeah, the people at the bar are really great as well. It's just a super nice venue, isn't it? Like the staff are so lovely.
Nice.
Like, yeah, it was such a. I mean, especially for me last year, I was kind of nervous first year doing a solo show, and then everyone just made it really nice. It was really lovely. Like people brought, you know, the guy that Aidan Green, who was on after me, he brought us like face masks on the last day, and like our staff brought us a coffee. You know, it was just super friendly and kind.
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, all the venues are great. PBH venues are all great, but Banshee Labyrinth, top.
Top, we love you.
Love you. Don't want to show favouritism, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
No, sure. Every venue is great.
Every venue.
To be honest, I have actually performed at the others. So.
Good. Some of the new ones, I've heard some really good things about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Especially Slow Progress. Yeah.
Oh, really? Slow Progress. What is it? A coffee shop?
It's a record coffee shop, a record and coffee shop. So you just stay there and have a coffee and then see some stuff.
Sounds so great. Yeah, I genuinely am quite looking forward to just being in Edinburgh and like relaxing a bit. I'm probably going to spend loads of money on like coffee and
yeah.
You know. And there's also, do you know what I found? Because I don't live in London anymore, and so what I found is that when I came back to Edinburgh, I see so many of my friends, like more than I would see if I was in London, because I'd have to travel everywhere, and it's such a village, Edinburgh, that it's quite a brilliant way to just catch up with people.
So yeah, I'm going to see people I haven't seen since 2019. I'm looking forward to that.
That's going to be lovely. Yeah, it'll be super nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your show too.
Yeah, I mean, don't pressure yourself. I'm not expecting or wanting anyone to see it, to be honest.
You don't want anyone to come. No one.
I want people to be at the venue. Like, go and have a lot of drinks at the bar, maybe.
Is it the sort of show, the drunker you are, the better?
No, I just want you to go and have a drink and not see my show.
Have a nice time. No.
Have a nice time. Yeah, support the bar. I don't know. Yeah.
It'll be great. No, it'll be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. All right, Bryony. Have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll see you in Edinburgh.
Hooray! Yeah, see you in Edinburgh. I can't wait. Thanks so much, Elise. See you soon. Bye.